This is Bill Sproull. I'm giving you an update on the status of our priorities in the Texas legislative session, which is now about halfway through its mark. In fact, just Friday the 13th, a little while ago, was the last day for legislators to file bills. And there have been thousands of bills filed, but I really want to focus on those that affect our legislative priorities. By the way, you can keep up with what's happening in the legislature on our priorities by signing up for our legislative alerts, which will go out weekly. So let's start with transportation. The voters last fall approved a constitutional amendment to dedicate a portion of the state's rainy day fund to transportation funding. The gap in what we need annually was estimated at the time at about $5 billion. That constitutional amendment would help bring about $1.2 to $1.5 billion additional into the highway fund, still leaving a pretty sizable gap. The biggest proposals that are getting a lot of traction in Austin and what the Senate has already approved is one, an end to the diversions out of the highway fund that go to fund the Department of Public Safety. That would need to come out of general revenue. And the other is to dedicate a portion of the motor vehicle sales tax permanently to the transportation fund, probably in the form of another constitutional amendment that the voters would need to approve. The House, on the other hand, has taken a different approach and looks to dedicate a portion of the state's sales tax to transportation funding. As always, these things have to get worked out in conference committees, and we'll see what happens in the balance of the 140-day session. The second one I want to talk about is public education. The governor laid out in his State of the State address a priority on expanding the early childhood pre-K programs. There's a lot of research to show that if you can get kids into a full day pre-K program, that their ability to succeed later in school is greatly enhanced. There have been a number of bills filed to address this issue. A lot of traction right now in the House Public Education Committee on this issue, and looks to be adding several hundreds of millions of dollars to the state budget to more fully fund a pre-K program for all the school districts in the state. There already are a number of pre-K programs out there, and again, there are different points of view about how much to fund, whether it's a full day or a half day, but the issue is getting a lot of attention. The other couple of issues that are getting a lot of attention in public education deal with a proposed accountability rating system that would grade each school campus on an A through F basis. This is something that a lot of the folks, like in the Texas Association of Business, have been very supportive of. Seems to be getting some traction. A lot of the school folks oppose it. Right now, the state's accountability system grades a school district on either meets the standard or needs improvement, and each school district has a rating. The legislation would rate each campus within each school district on an A through F. The other issue that's getting a lot of attention on public education is an effort to try to help about 28,000 high school seniors in Texas graduate without passing all the required end of course exams. Last session there was a drastic reduction from 15 to 5, the number of end of course exams that a high school senior would need to pass in order to graduate with a diploma. About 90% or more of high school seniors actually pass all 5, but about 28,000 in Texas have not on multiple attempts. And to avoid having them either get discouraged and drop out, and perhaps more importantly to the bill's authors to be able to graduate with a diploma, they would reduce that to 3 end of course exams, and they would have a special committee appointed to determine whether or not there were other relevant issues that should be considered in helping them to graduate. Let me turn to higher education because, as you know, we're big supporters of our friends at UT Dallas and elsewhere in the higher education arena. 2 big issues there. One has been at least 8 years since the legislature passed a funding bill called tuition revenue bonds to help fund new facilities and building maintenance on our campuses. There's been significant enrollment growth across universities of Texas, certainly at UT Dallas, and we need a new building program. There seems to be broad support for some kind of a tuition revenue bond program. One has been introduced in the House that has a lot of support that would help fund some new buildings at UT Dallas, and so we're hopeful about that. The other fund that we're supporting is the Texas Research Incentive Program. It's a fund that was designed back in 2009 to help accelerate the pathway for emerging research universities to achieve national research status. It matches private and other contributions to universities. There's been a big backlog in the number of gifts and donations to universities that have not been matched, over $130 million in the current fiscal period, and we would like to see the legislature fully fund the TRIP program. And right now the House Appropriations Committee has taken money out of a number of other funds, put it into this incentive program, and so we think that there's progress being made on that issue. In economic development, Representative Angie Chen Button from Richardson, the chair of the House Economic Development and Small Business Committee, has filed a number of reform bills, House Bills 26, 27, and 28, on March 13 that would address the issues concerning the Texas Enterprise Fund, the Texas Emerging Technology Fund, the Texas Film Commission, and other funds, appoint a new oversight committee to determine awards out of those funds, to make the process more transparent. And she was the chair of an interim committee between the last and the current legislative session on a select committee on economic development incentives. So we think that she will be the primary author of moving those programs forward, keeping them intact, which we believe is important to our competitive advantage here in Richardson and North Texas, throughout Texas. The other two issues are water. We have a process in Texas that has become very difficult to permit new water resources. It takes years and decades to build new reservoirs, and one of the issues is the permitting time it takes. And so a number of bills, Senator Van Taylor of Plano, Senator Jeff Leach, or excuse me, Representative Jeff Leach, have filed bills that would give the state's Commission on Environmental Quality up to 3 years to permit a new water reservoir. In some cases, it's taken them over a decade to do that, and we need the extra water now. We are still in a drought here in Texas despite the recent rain, and so we're hopeful that those bills will get fair hearings and move forward. The last issue particularly concerned to a lot of our technology companies is patent reform. The federal government really has not taken the next steps in patent reform to address frivolous lawsuits, and particularly demand letters filed by what are called patent trolls, or non-practicing entities. They are companies who merely hold patents with the sole purpose of trying to monetize them without producing a product, and they will willfully sue others and cause the cost of business to go up significantly, particularly for small companies and innovators, but big companies as well. And so a number of states have taken actions to try to provide remedies against these frivolous lawsuits in the form of consumer protection. Senator Van Taylor has filed a bill to help do that in the Senate, and we will continue to watch that. So a lot of action. The legislative session will end at the end of May. We're here in the middle of March, and so it's going to be a wild ride the next 2.5 months. Stay tuned.